All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Just Hoop Talk. You with Justin Henry, Will Thompson, and today we're talking the Houston Rockets. A lot of change going on with the Houston Rockets.
Man.
Been a busy offseason already. We're going to talk about how they did last year as the small ball Rockets, some of those changes in the offseason and what they could do moving forward to get into that playoff championship picture. Stay tuned.
You are now tuned in to the next best thing. Justin Henry, Will Thompson.
Yeah,
Let's
y'all
go.
can talk that talk, but this is just hoop talk. Updates on the news, analysis who's who gon' win, who gon' lose. Is it true? Is it true? This is just hoop talk. This is just hoop talk. Ball.
All right, guys. So the small ball Houston Rockets, we saw it work and crashed the minute it needed to go to the playoffs. Will, talk a little bit about this small ball Houston Rockets team that was kind of built like right there at the trade deadline, and we saw the results of it.
Yeah, it looked good at times and it looked terrible at times. It really was just a matchup thing, I think, at the end of the day. And they ran into, the worst matchup possible with the Los Angeles Lakers, a team who had size that just absolutely dominated them with their size. I think in some scenarios, the small ball works and it looks great. But is it good enough to win a championship? I don't think so. But it was an experiment. They took a shot. I think they felt like the team that they had assembled probably wasn't going to win a championship just as is. So they tried something different. They took their shot, and it didn't work out. It fell short. But, props to them for trying something different and trying to switch it up. But now they're in a really awkward situation, man. I'll let you talk about the situation because I know you got some things to say about where they're at now because of that experiment.
Man, and it's tough because, you saw this Rockets team when they came in early in the season. You got Westbrook, you got Harden, you got Capella. They're like, man, this team isn't that far off of the other Western contenders. And then they made just a really bold move at a time when, they're pushing the Warriors to 7 games. They were making a lot of the right moves, literally a game away from being in the finals at some points with that same roster they had constructed. And it fell out with Capella, man. They were kind of bullying people with the small ball. I think it threw people off guard when you got, kind of big PJ Tucker down there messing with your centers. And you got, Robert Covington in there now playing instead of Capella. Like, it kind of worked. But then, like you said, when you get to the Lakers, you get to these playoff matchups where you have to play that way for 7 straight games to try to get 4 wins. It's tough, man. A lot of ISO ball with D'Antoni was there. A lot of just free-flowing, who's going to make the play between Westbrook and Harden. It just didn't work, man. And you know what? I think you want to give the small ball Rockets a chance. It's like there's a reason why people don't play basketball like that. It doesn't work.
Sure.
So I'm really interested in this offseason for them. A lot of changes. Daryl Morey's gone. Mike D'Antoni's gone. Monty McNair's gone. It's like a whole different regime there, but they're still the same cast of players. That's the problem with that. You got money tied into Harden. You got money tied into Westbrook. You brought Covington over. You still got Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker. It's the same crew. It's like, what do you do? How do you rebuild that? And I think it all starts with either bringing another name over or shipping some of this talent out. What do you think they do, Will, here in this offseason?
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting point because they made a lot of changes to the front office, but they didn't make any changes to the roster because they're in a tough spot, man. They don't have a lot to offer. So if you look at their trade bait, they have 2 guys that people are probably interested in. And from there, there's a big drop in the talent level. Maybe Robert Covington is someone who people might be looking at, or Eric Gordon. But they have a bunch of guys who kind of do the same thing. And so that works perfectly if they decide to stick with the small ball and try to run out the same squad that they did last year and try to, I don't know, hope for better results. But if they're trying to switch it up, they really have no assets. They don't have a draft pick. There's just not a lot of options for them. So if they want to move away from small ball, they don't have any bigs. Like, what are they going to do? So they're in a difficult spot, man. They have two big names that they can move, and that's really it. So if we're looking at them making moves, it's going to be Westbrook or it's going to be Harden. And from what we're hearing Harden's name tossed around more than anyone. So that might be the move. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's just the most value you can get back. I think if you trade Harden, though, you probably have to trade Westbrook too. Unfortunately, you're looking at, a big chunk of the salary going to those two players. Yeah. And if you trade Harden to a Philly, you trade him to a Nets or wherever you're thinking he's going to go, you're going to command actually a lot of talent back. It just doesn't work with Westbrook's style of play, or does the new coach, GM, whoever want Westbrook attached to that, because he's a very dynamic player in the way that he plays. It's, you have to kind of build around him as the point guard. Yeah. And it's tough, man. When you start thinking about deals, you start thinking about trades, they have all these shooters, and there's a ton of teams that need shooters. When you're talking Ben McLemore, Daniel House, you got Chris Clemens coming off the bench. Like, there's a lot of talent on that team shooting and fast pace wise, but it doesn't equate to wins. So when you start thinking about future moves, how do you even package that stuff up to somebody for a big when they know, okay, the Rockets are a big away from being, impactful. Yeah. And, that's kind of wild when you start to hear these offseason rumors like Embiid to Houston. Wow. How do you make that happen? Honestly, you're going to trade Harden to Philly, and what, you're going to have Westbrook and Embiid? You're going to try to make it work with all three of them? How the hell is that going to work?
Man.
I don't know, man. I don't see it. Do you see any way that they can bring a third star in here and really make that happen? Or are you thinking it's go time here, man?
I think, again, we go back to the small ball experiment. So if you do trade James Harden, bring in Embiid, you still have this kind of strange team around now Joel Embiid, centered around Joel Embiid. And I don't know if that necessarily benefits Joel Embiid. So now you're putting a big man in the middle of the paint in a scenario where you had a bunch of guys who kind of was working in or operating in a spread offense. So I don't know. And Westbrook's a guy who likes to get into the paint and does not like other people in his way when he's down doing his thing. So, man, I don't know. It's tough, man. I have no idea what's going to happen in Houston, but I think they're going to have to make some changes for sure. And I think you're right, man. I think they're going to have to make a full roster blowout sale, dude. They're going to have to get rid of their two big guys to get some young assets, to get some talented, versatile players who can do different things, play different positions, and kind of revamp the whole situation over there. We might be looking at a rebuild in Houston sooner than later. I think we're looking at a rebuild sooner than we're looking at
a problem.
Houston, we have there it is.
Big time. And, unfortunately, I think the trades are probably going to happen. If they don't, let's talk about if they don't. If no major moves are made and they try to keep the roster intact for one more, to be honest, I think they're still a playoff team. They're still a team that's going to be contending. They're going to be pushing some of these top-level teams to a first, second round, 7-game series. That's just who the Rockets are. And I think the offseason will help them. The shorter season will actually help them. True. And they'll also have time to gel too. And so with this 72-game season, I think if they can make it to the bubble without really any injuries and they're still kind of playing, they may be able to wear on some teams. Just when you get matched up against a Denver, LA, some of those bigger teams, I think that's where they fall short. If they could find a center for the load, maybe like a Dwight Howard or somebody is able to come back to Houston the same way he came back to LA, goes back to Houston and makes an impact. If they can find a vet that's going to be willing to play for a little bit lower of an amount, I think there's a way that they can flip them for one of those shooters that they have. If you're talking about a Daniel House, you're talking about who got in a little bit of trouble there in the bubble, you're talking about a Ben McLemore. I think that you can find maybe a sliver of hope. Like you mentioned, Eric Gordon, I think, would fish a really decent big man that can complement those two. So,
definitely.
I mean, is there anybody on the top of your mind? I'm trying to think right now. Is there anybody at the top of your mind that you like comes across as a big that they can get? I really think Dwight Howard would probably be a really good fit there with the Rockets system.
Right. I like that. I like JaVale McGee too. I think he's the type of guy who fits really well in those systems. Obviously, I mean, if you look at it, Clint Capella was a perfect player for that situation. And I never understood that move. That made no sense to me, but it is what it is. But I think you brought up a great point though. we have to keep this in perspective. Like, they do have a problem. Houston has a problem, but they also we're kind of looking at it from a perspective of a team that was a game away from being in the finals just a few years ago. Yeah. Instead of looking at from a perspective as like the rest of the NBA wishes that they had 2 former MVPs on their team, you know?
Yes.
Like either way, if they make no moves, they're gonna be a 40, probably 50 win team, guaranteed at least 40 wins, probably 50 wins. They'll be in the playoffs. They're gonna be a tough out in the playoffs regardless.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind. Like, they do have a problem compared to where they were, but they're still going to be a problem in the Western Conference, and a really tough Western Conference. But, you know, when you have 2 former MVPs, dude, you expect a lot more from a team like this. I don't know, man. We'll see. I can't think of anybody that off the top of my head.
I like that JaVale McGee pick, man, because he fit in there kind of nice the same way he did when he was there at Golden State. The fast-paced team, just kind of cleaning up the glass. He probably is looking for a little bit more minutes than the Lakers are giving him there towards the end of the year. So,
right. I think Brooklyn has some good assets at the big position as well, with Nick Claxton, Jared Allen, and DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
I know they need shooters, so I think we could be potentially looking at a move between Brooklyn and Houston. Not the move everyone is expecting, but I think
Harden.
I think that could potentially be like an Eric Gordon to Brooklyn, or like one of those shooters, Robert Covington. That could possibly happen. I don't know, because they kind of have a logjam with bigs over there in Brooklyn. So
yeah, I think Eric Gordon's contract is a little
that's true
too. But
they probably wouldn't be able to get DeAndre Jordan. I know his contract's probably a little bigger, but they have some young bigs as well. So I don't know. We'll see, man. We will see.
We'll see, man. Hopefully for the Rockets, man, they don't have to blow it all up. But it seems, man, I'm throwing the puns out here all day. Hopefully they're not blowing it up, man. But it seems like this team is not constructed to win a championship. So there's going to be a few moves made. Otherwise, you can expect an early first, a second round exit, just like normal, man. But let us know your thoughts. We right on about the Rockets. You think they make a big splash in free agency, or with the big trade, I should say? Do you think that they do a little minor move and kind of upgrade themselves as that, you know, first round, second round exit to a true championship contender? Let us know in the comments. Just Hoop Talk. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Make sure as always, we'll comment back. Just Hoop Talk, another edition of the books. We're out.
Yes, sir. Peace.